You're talking, and someone cuts you off mid-sentence, like you were never even there. You walk into a room and no one looks up. Someone makes a joke at your expense and everyone laughs. You stand there, silent. In that moment, something hits you. It's small but sharp, and it lingers far longer than it should. The hardest part isn't what they did, it's what it makes you believe about yourself. If you've ever felt that way, this video is for you. By the end, you'll know how to stop giving those moments power over you, and how to never let someone else's disrespect define your worth again. Let me tell you about Alex. Alex was a young employee who spent weeks convinced his boss hated him. She barely spoke to him, never said good morning, never acknowledged his work. He replayed every interaction, searching for what he'd done wrong, lost sleep over it, considered quitting. Months later, he learned she was going through a divorce. Her silence had nothing to do with him. She was just surviving her own life. That's when Alex realized something that changed everything. First thing, disrespect does not come from other people. It comes from your interpretation. That sounds simple, but most people have never actually sat with that idea. They are too busy replaying the moment in their head, getting angrier each time they replay it. Someone rolls their eyes at you. That is a facial expression. That is all it is. But your brain immediately runs a story. They think I'm stupid. They do not take me seriously. They never have. And now you are not just reacting to an eye roll, you are reacting to every time you have ever felt dismissed. One small gesture carries the weight of years. That is not their power, that is yours. And right now you are giving it away. Here's what's actually happening in those moments. You're in a group chat. You send the message, everyone reads it, no one replies, the chat moves on like you never spoke. You check again, still nothing. A small ache starts. Did I say something wrong? Do they not like me? Am I being ignored? People are distracted, busy, moving fast. It's almost never about you. But your brain treats silence as danger, so it fills the gap with a story, and it usually picks the worst one. Same thing when someone cuts you off. You're speaking, they jump in. It feels like disrespect. Most interruptions are not rejection. People get excited. They speak fast. They don't wait. That's poor listening, not a message about your value. The meaning you add is what hurts you. Now think about rude comments. Someone says something sharp. It sticks. You replay it. What did I do to deserve that? Most of the time, it has nothing to do with you. It's just their own noise spilling over. Stress, anger, insecurity. People pass on what they carry. You just happen to be there. You care about how people see you. That is human. You are not weak for caring. Every person on this planet wants to be seen, heard, and valued. That is not an ego problem. That is just how people are built. The problem comes when your sense of worth becomes dependent on whether or not someone gives it to you. When you walk into a room and you need people to acknowledge you to feel okay, you have already handed them control. You are now at the mercy of their moods, their distractions, their bad days, their insecurities.
And most of the time, the person who disrespected you was not even thinking about you at all. The thing that kept you up at night, the comment that ruined your afternoon, the moment that made you question your worth, that person has probably forgotten it happened. They moved on 10 seconds after, but you are still carrying it. You are still giving them rent-free space in your mind. That is the real problem. Not what they did, but how long you stayed with it. Here's where everything changes. You've been waiting for people to treat you well so you can feel good about yourself. You've been outsourcing your self-worth. Every time someone ignores you, you take it as evidence that you are not enough. Every time someone talks over you, you take it as proof that your voice does not matter. You've been collecting evidence for a case against yourself, and you've been using other people's behavior as the evidence. That stops today. Your worth is not up for a vote. It does not go up when someone praises you, and it does not go down when someone dismisses you. It's fixed. It's yours. But here's the catch. You have to actually decide that. You can't just say the words and move on. You have to build it slowly by choosing differently every single time it's tested. And it will be tested daily. So what do you actually do when disrespect happens? Because it will. People will be rude. People will ignore you. People will underestimate you. The goal is not to avoid those moments. The goal is to respond differently when they come. The first thing you do is pause, not for dramatic effect, Just pause because your first reaction is almost always emotional, and emotional reactions almost always make things worse. That pause is where your power lives. In that 1 second between what happened and how you respond, everything changes. The second thing is to ask yourself a real question. Is this actually disrespect or am I just uncomfortable? Because those two things feel the same, but they're very different. Discomfort is personal. It's about you. Disrespect is about their behavior. If you can separate those two things, you immediately feel less triggered. The third thing is to decide consciously how much this matters. Not everything needs a response. Not every comment needs to be corrected. Not every slight needs to be addressed. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let it go. Not because you're weak, but because you're not willing to spend your energy on something that doesn't deserve it. When someone makes a rude comment, you don't have to clap back. You don't have to defend yourself. You can simply look at them, say nothing, and move on. That silence is not passivity. That silence is control. It says, I heard you. I'm not moved by you, and I'm not interested in making this a bigger moment than it needs to be. But sometimes it genuinely is disrespect, where someone is consistently dismissive, where someone repeatedly talks over you or takes credit for your work or treats you as less than. That's real, and it should not be ignored. But even here, the approach is calm. You don't need anger to have a boundary. You don't need to raise your voice to be taken seriously. In fact, the calmer you are, the more weight your words carry. You say it plainly. You say it once, and then you let your actions follow your words. If someone keeps interrupting you, you stop mid-sentence and say, I wasn't done. Not aggressively, just clearly, and then you keep talking. If someone takes credit for your idea, you bring it up directly without drama. You say, that came from our earlier conversation where I suggested this, and you say it in a room where it matters. The point is not to win. The point is to make clear where you stand, and then to keep standing there, calmly, consistently, without needing the other person to suddenly see the light. Understand this, most people are not thinking about you. Not because you're not important, but because they're too focused on themselves, their own fears, their own image, their own problems. The person who seemed cold to you at work this morning might have had a terrible night. The friend who didn't invite you to something might have been dealing with something they didn't want to talk about. The stranger who was rude to you in line was probably carrying a bad day that had nothing to do with you.
When you stop making other people's behavior about you, something lightens. You stop being constantly on edge. You stop scanning every interaction for signs of rejection. You stop needing every conversation to confirm your value. And that is the freedom this whole video has been building toward. The goal is not to become someone who does not feel anything. The goal is to become someone who feels things and does not get wrecked by them. Someone who can walk into any room, interact with any kind of person, handle any kind of behavior, and still leave feeling whole. But that requires a foundation, and that foundation is real self-respect. Self-respect is not about how you present yourself to the world. It is about how you treat yourself privately. The conversations you have with yourself after something hard happens. The standards you hold yourself to when nobody is watching. The way you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. Most people who feel constantly disrespected by others are already disrespecting themselves. They're telling themselves they aren't smart enough, not confident enough, not interesting enough. And then when someone else's behavior lines up with that internal story, it destroys them because it feels like confirmation. When you start treating yourself with real respect, something shifts. You stop accepting less because you aren't desperate for more. You stop chasing validation because you are already giving it to yourself. You stop being hurt so easily because your identity isn't fragile anymore. This does not happen overnight, but it starts with small choices. How you respond to failure, how you talk about yourself when something goes wrong, whether you keep the commitments you make to yourself, whether you take your own opinions seriously. Whether you protect your time and your energy like they matter. They matter. You matter. But nobody is going to give you that belief. You have to grow it yourself.
And one day, you'll realize it's working. Someone will say something dismissive to you, and instead of that familiar tightening in your chest, there will just be a pause, a quiet moment where you notice what happened and then you move forward. Not because you're suppressing anything, not because you're pretending it did not happen, but because you have genuinely stopped giving that moment the power to define how you feel about yourself. You will be in a conversation and someone will interrupt you, and instead of going quiet and shrinking, you will calmly say your words anyway. Not because you need to dominate, but because you know your voice belongs in the room. You will stop replaying moments at night. You will stop rehearsing responses to things that happened 3 days ago. You will stop building cases against people who probably forgot you existed. And in that space, you will feel something unfamiliar. Calm. Not the fake calm of pretending everything is fine, the real kind. The kind that comes from knowing that whatever happens out there, you are okay in here. That is the real goal. Not to become someone nothing can touch, but to become someone who validates themselves first, who fills themselves first, who does not walk around with an empty cup waiting for someone else to pour into it. You are not too sensitive. You are not too emotional. You have just been waiting for other people to give you something only you can give yourself. Stop waiting. The day you stop asking, do they respect me? And start asking, do I respect myself? Is the day other people's opinions lose their grip on you. That's real power. And it's been yours this whole time.